We're witnessing one of the greatest NBA draft classes in history, and it just keeps getting better every year. 15 years from now, I believe it has a chance to be considered the greatest, and there's potentially a huge investment opportunity that you might be overlooking. Let's data dive. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Data Dive, powered by Market Movers. My name is Tyler Nethercott, better known as Teapot, and this week I am shining a light on what could turn out to be the greatest draft class in NBA history. And I'm going to show you what might be the big old teapot of gold at the end of the rainbow, the Prism Rainbow. As always, this video is brought to you by Market Movers. Visit marketmoversapp.com and use promo code DIVE. When you check out, you'll get 14 days completely free to try it out, and then 20% off for life as long as you're subscribed. Now let's get into the data. All right, so I want to give you a quick breakdown of what we're going to discuss. First, I'm going to show you what I believe to be the 4 best draft classes in NBA history. Then we'll quickly review some overall market trend data. We're going to talk about what I believe is the best investment overall for the long term. And then I'm going to get into some budget options and how I approach that. There's been some requests from users to show cards that might be a little more affordable, a little more accessible to everybody. So I want to close out the video with that. So let's start out with the best draft classes. And I think there's 4. I'm going to go in chronological order, not necessarily the best order, because I think you could make a case for all 4 of these, or at least for 3 of them, and a newer one that's sort of up and coming. And you got to start out with 1984, the 1984 NBA draft. And that is, of course, headlined by a one Michael Jeffrey Jordan. And what I've done here is I'm on Basketball Reference. I love this website for a million different reasons. And there's no perfect thing to sort by here to show the greatest players of all time from each draft class. I'm sorting by value over replacement. It's pretty good. And you can see, obviously, Jordan at the top. This one is very top heavy. This class is very top heavy. You've got Jordan, you've got Stockton, you've got Barkley, and you've got Hakeem the Dream Olajuwon. You've got those 4 guys in this draft class. A lot of people don't remember that Stockton was part of that 84 draft class because his rookie card isn't until 1987. But he was part of that class. And then as you kind of go down the list, you know, there's a number of other greats. I think you could sort of snap a chalk line when you're looking at different classes to see how many different athletes from the draft class had, let's say, over a 10 value over replacement during their careers. You can also just look at something like minutes played. When a guy plays, he's obviously contributing to a team, and there's a reason that he's on the court. So you could look at that and you could say, okay, this guy, you know, anything over, let's say, 10,000 minutes played in a career, you could do that. But I'm going to look at this just for comparison's sake. And let's say anything over a 10 VORP. So you've got 11 total athletes, total players from the 1984 draft class. Next, you got to look at 1996. And that class, a lot of people don't remember some of the guys who were in this draft class. For sure, you're going to remember Kobe. You're going to remember Allen Iverson. You're going to remember Ray Allen and Steve Nash. But man, Marcus Camby was really good. That guy, I used to have on my fantasy team every single year. He just filled up all of those stats that you didn't come by easily, blocks and steals, rebounds, things like that. Then you got Stephon Marbury, Peja Stojakovic. Sharif Abdur-Rahim was an absolute stud for a while. I used to collect him when I was little. Antoine Walker, Kerry Kittles, Jermaine O'Neal. The list goes on and on and on. Honestly, you kind of come all the way down. And this particular class had 12 guys who were 10 VORP and up. You do want to point out that, you know, people remember Derek Fisher and would consider that he had a better career than Kerry Kittles did. So that's why, you know, something like this isn't perfect. If we sort it this way, you see Fisher actually played the 5th most minutes from this entire draft class. Maybe that's a better way to look at it overall. Then you got to talk about 2003, right? We know who's in that draft class. LeBron James, for sure, you know, one of the greatest ever to do it. Dwayne Wade, one of the greatest shooting guards of all time. Carmelo Anthony, Chris Bosh. Those are kind of the 4 guys from this draft class. Let's switch to minutes and kind of look at that too. Kyle Korver, one of the greatest three-point shooters, you know, maybe the greatest three-point shooter outside of now who I would say is Stephen Curry. David West had a great career. Boris Diaw was a great journeyman who played and contributed a lot for several teams. Kirk Heinrich, Mo Williams, and so on and so forth. And then the one that's still very much active right now and very much playing out, and that is the 2018 draft class. Now this draft class, for me and for probably many of you, has kind of a special place because this is about when I got back into the hobby. After having been in it when I was a kid, a little bit when I was a young adult, then I got back into it in 2019 when many of these products and many of these rookies were kind of all the rage. It was before Zion and all of that. So we're coming down here, and I've got it sorted by VORP. Again, you've got Luka at the top, no surprise there. Shea, who is very clearly at this point emerging as the second best player from this draft. And in fact, some people are arguing that they would take him or think he's better than Luka. I'm not going to get into that debate right now. I think you could make a case in either direction. But Trey, he's kind of fallen off. He's fallen out of favor. Many of his cards have come down significantly in value. But then you've got Mikal Bridges, who's really good. Jalen Brunson, who's really good. You've got, I'm going to skip Mitchell Robinson. This is just kind of funny because of how some of his efficiency stats are, I think. DeAndre Ayton, he was the #1 pick. He's been pretty solid. He's been a good player. I wouldn't say he's one of the best players from this draft class. I would skip down and say Jaren Jackson Jr. He won Defensive Player of the Year last year. He's a really good player. Dante DiVincenzo, he's finally starting to play really well. He's kind of showing up when the Knicks need him to. He's a guy I always liked. He's a fantastic off-the-ball defender, really, really good, a smart player, and he's actually been shooting really well. You got Michael Porter Jr., Miles Bridges, who is actually quite good. It's just that he had some of those off-the-court issues, which were pretty lamentable. And there's several other guys here who are playing. So like if I sort this by minutes, you can see I've got Mikal Bridges, Trey, Luka, who have missed some time, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Kevin Huerter, who's obviously a good shooter, Brunson, Ayton, and the list goes on. A lot of these guys at this point are still playing somewhat big minutes for several different teams when you kind of come all the way down this list. And that's in stark contrast to other classes that we look at, let's say from the 2010s all the way up until now. Many of the recent draft classes, honestly, haven't been very good at all. This one stands out as being really, really loaded, both in actual star power and then even in the next rung down of all-stars down to role players. So obviously it's headlined, like I said, by these 6 guys. These are their stats from this 2023-24 season. And right now you've got Luka and Shai, who are both kind of hovering in that 3 to 4 MVP spot in terms of Vegas odds. Trey, like I said, has come down a lot. Brunson has been on the up. You've got Mikal Bridges, and boy, what a year, by the way, for Villanova. Obviously, they had won that championship, the NCAA championship, and you've got Brunson, Mikal Bridges, and Dante DiVincenzo, who have all been playing really well in the NBA. And I would even look at players like Jaren Jackson Jr. and like Mikal Bridges and say, I think they're actually very, very good. They're very good. And if you compare them to the #1 draft picks from the years since then, they kind of stand out as holding their own against those guys outside of maybe Anthony Edwards. Now, there's a period where it takes time to get better, for sure. So we're not seeing the peak maturity of some of these newer crops like Banchero, for example, or even Cade Cunningham. But if you look at their stats, you compare Mikal Bridges to Cade or to Banchero, you can make a case that these guys are just as good, and they were not the #1 overall draft picks from those draft classes. So that just shows how deep that draft class is. If we shift gears now and we look at the market overall, what I've done is I've gone to our Market Pulse. This is our market index tool. This shows you kind of how things are tracking at a higher level. We put a bunch of cards into an index so you can get a sense. And we make these rookie class indexes, and you've got 2021, 2020, 2019, and 2018. And I'm showing these stats over the last 90 days or so, and you can see that only the 2018 class, that's the green line on the chart, is up 13.5% collectively, whereas these other draft classes are down, especially 2019, which has pretty much just turned out to be a complete disaster and disappointment at this point. So what does that mean? How do I think about this when it's more than just one really good player carrying a particular draft class? This isn't just Luka. This isn't just Shai. This isn't a year, like 2013 where it's pretty much Giannis or bust. No, this entire class is pretty good. It reminds me a bit of like 2020 football draft class. And that always comes back for me, for Jeff, for many of us at SCI, to sealed products, to sealed wax. So what I did was I went over and I switched from cards to sealed products, and I went to our movements page, and I just threw in 2018 basketball. And we add in pretty much every product that comes out. Historically, we've been filling it in. We've got, I don't know, some 8,500 different sealed products that we're tracking in here, which is quite a few. There's not nearly as many sealed products, obviously, as cards in existence. And I'm looking at the last 365 days, and you can see from this 2018 draft class, many of these are up. And when you're looking at the last year, if you compare that to the card market overall, almost all cards are down in price. Basketball cards, notably and significantly, are quite a bit down in price overall across all the cards. So when you're looking at these sealed products, you're seeing something very, very different. Now, some of these are down, and those are the ones that I'd actually be somewhat interested in when I'm looking at these charts. But when I'm looking at sealed products, I really want to laser in on the ones that are the most iconic, that people are going to remember, the brands that are going to carry through from generation to generation. If we go back in time, we think about something like Topps Chrome, Topps Finest, other products like that. So let's jump and look at some of those notable ones. We've got 2018 Prism First Off the Line. We've got 2018 Prism Hobby Box. We've got Select Hobby, Select First Off the Line, and Optic Hobby Box. And I've charted all of these on our all data settings. So this is as far back as we've been tracking this data. It obviously doesn't go back to 2018. Market Movers was launched in early 2020. But we are tracking a lot of these prices, and we've got a nice view of their price trajectories over time. And what I see, I'm actually going to switch this to the last 365 days. And then I'm going to switch and I'm going to expand this view so that I can see what have these products been doing over the last year. And this really stands out to me. This Prism First Off the Line basketball down 40% from the last year. And actually, if I go back, you'll see, I'm going to actually switch this back to all data. I meant to show this. So you'll see that I can see the low price on this product is $3,050, and that's actually the last sale. So as long as we've been tracking this on 74 total sales for this product, you can see that it has hit its low water mark. Recently, somebody, in my opinion, got a really good deal on this product. We don't know, we haven't seen anywhere that the Luka Black Prism, the one-of-one Luka Black, true black Prism, has been pulled. It's possible it's been pulled and that somebody has it or they're hiding it, but it hasn't surfaced publicly. And so that particular product, the longer that one doesn't get discovered, the more Prism as a brand from 2018 Hobby and First Off the Line stands out as one that people are going to be going after actively. And it's really interesting because we see that the hobby box, the regular hobby box, is up almost 300% in that same time frame, whereas this one has come down to nearly the same price. So those are the types of things I look for. It's not enough to zoom in on one product and go, I want to buy a hobby box, let's get a hobby box. Look at the price trajectories over time and see where those things stack up. This one stands out to me as one that might be a good buying opportunity. So what I can do is I can compare this. I'm looking at 2003 Topps Chrome, 96 Topps Chrome. We've got SP Authentic from 2003, and then obviously the First Off the Line Prism Hobby Box. 96 Metal, great product, and 96 Finest, also a really, really nice product. These are from those other iconic draft classes, which I think are good comparisons. And what stands out to me is the sales count. I'm looking at the sales from the last year of these products, and you can see many of these older products still holding their own in terms of the number of sales compared to Prism First Off the Line. In fact, I've got 24 Prism First Off the Line sales in the last year, and I've got 25 Skybox Metal. These are both selling for exactly the same price. What does that tell me? As supply dries up, demand increases, the prices go up, and then you're going to see those things appreciate over time. This is why I think this particular product right now, where it's priced, it would actually be a good buy. Now, can you go out and find one for this price? Probably not. Not right now, I would doubt it. You're probably going to find somebody trying to move it for closer to $4,000. But if you're astute and you're keeping your eye on the different marketplaces and looking at shows and other things, maybe you could. Maybe if you're buying in bulk, if somebody has it, you could get those at that price. I think this is a really good comparison. And what we see is that sealed product holds up much better over time than specific cards do, largely speaking. And we've got this very well-rounded draft class that just keeps getting better, so I think that injects a lot more value. Now, if we want to look at specific players, how do I approach that and how would I look for budget buying opportunities? The wax I consider more of a long-term investment, though it could pay off in 3 to 4 to 6 months if you find a good deal. With players, what I did, I went to movements again. I'm on the player tab, threw in basketball, 18, graded only, rookie cards, and then I'm looking here just at cards $20 and up to try to get a sense of what different players are doing. I see Grayson Allen's up 41% in the last 90 days. Jalen Brunson is up. In fact, a lot of these guys from this 2018 class, unsurprisingly, since we looked at that index, are up over the last 90 days. If I want to look for specific deals, we are 2/3, 3/4 of the way through the NBA season now. And as we approach the playoffs, the only guys who I would expect to see go up in value are not the ones typically who are going to win awards. It's the ones who are going to get into the playoffs and win at least 1 or 2 rounds with their teams and actually show up. The guys who are actually going to show up and play well, the focal points of those teams that will be winning. We see that pretty consistently year over year, specifically in basketball, most notably. So I threw the guys in here who are on teams. Unfortunately, it's not a super long list. In spite of the depth of that draft class, many of those guys are unfortunately playing on teams that aren't particularly good. We've got Michael Porter Jr. for the Nuggets. I think they're second in Vegas odds to win the NBA championship, with Boston being first. We've got Brunson and DiVincenzo from the Knicks, Luka from the Mavericks, Shea on the Thunder. I'm really intrigued to see what they're going to do in the playoffs. And then I threw Grayson Allen in here because he plays for the Suns, and he is a pretty important role player for what is otherwise a pretty shallow overall roster for them. So I've got that. I put in a $10 to $100 price range. So Market Movers makes it really easy. You can just look and see what cards have been selling, how have they been selling, on what buying format. And then I sorted by price change over the last 90 days because I think this paints a really important, or tells a really important story. There's two types of cards. There's the ones that are iconic from the flagship products like Prism, Select, Optic. And then there's the ones that are a little more niche, a little more cult following, a little more obscure and less well known. Something like Chronicles, and especially these Chronicles Majestic. You've got other ones like this Chronicles Essentials. So any of these products that don't sell everyday certified mirror red, those are going to be really difficult for you to be able to flip like on an auction and really be able to bank on getting a good value, even if these players take off. Because people are looking for the commodity cards and they're looking for the ones that have recent comps. So if your goal is to flip in anticipation for the playoffs, I would be sticking to cards that have not a super high pop count necessarily, but Prism, Optic, Select, those are the ones that people are typically scouring for on eBay when players are going up. If you want to look for deals overall on these players, look for auctions that are ending on these more obscure sets. You can just put in Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, you can put in Jaren Jackson Jr., and specifically click on auction on eBay, sort by ending soonest, and just watch it. Watch it every day, and don't be afraid to throw out bids that are 20, 30% lower than what that card might have last sold for, and see what you can get. It's sort of like speed dating, or when you see these TikTok videos of guys going up at the mall and just trying, hey, you want to go out on a date? You want to go on a date? They ask 100 people out. Maybe 2 of them say yes. Now they've got a date. Approach, buying some of these cards like that, and you will be surprised at some of the ones you'll get. This card in particular, this first one on the list, selling for $11. Sometimes it's just like mine. Kind of makes you scratch your head. It's a little bit confusing. Sometimes they end at weird times. Sometimes nobody saw it. They didn't title it properly. Maybe it's a seller. Even when I see a seller on eBay who's like 99.3% positive feedback, that can scare people away, and they won't buy from that seller. So keep your eyes peeled for those. But if I scroll down this list and I'm looking at these, I'm probably not going to spend $100 on a Dante DiVincenzo card necessarily. He's playing really well right now. I want to see what's going to happen with him a little bit longer. You can look for cards in obscure grades, like this SGC 9, and compare that to like PSA 10s. These are the ones that you might buy on auction and then list on a fixed price back at the normal comp range. You can be patient, that might pay off. But I like to look for these types of cards. Typically, I want them graded. So I can apply that filter here and come back up and do this graded only and refresh my search. And then if I scroll down, I've got graded options. People feel more confident on eBay buying those. This one really stands out to me. And the reason this one stands out to me, it's Michael Porter Jr.'s Optic Hollow. Optic Hollow is very iconic, PSA 10. Very low pop count, pop 174 for $20. It costs you $20 to get a card graded right now. And it's a PSA 10, very low pop count. This is a guy who can score in volume. He just had a big game recently. He's a really efficient shooter. And he's an important part of that Nuggets roster. He played pretty well for them in some of the games last year en route to their first championship. So he's a guy who could show up. He could have a big game or two in the playoffs while Denver's playing, and maybe this card pops off. What I do from here is I click on this. I get the little fly out, and I just want to see, okay, what's this card's price trajectory been over time? I can see this time last year, it spiked up at $80. $80 on this card that now recently sold for $20. It's been consistently trending down. And if you know my videos, if you've heard me speak before, I talk a lot about floor versus ceiling. I'm looking for cards with a high floor, meaning I don't think the price can dip much lower than where it is today, and a higher ceiling. When you have a PSA 10 card, a refractor style card of a player who's decent on a championship caliber team that is all the way down to the price to grade the card at $20, can it go lower? Yeah, it could go down to $1, I guess. I don't see that happening anytime soon with a player of his caliber, but it could easily go back up to $40, $50, $60, and those cards end up being very easy to move. So this is another one, is courtside silver, and I'm just focusing in on him. Even Shea with this Concourse Scope card, there's a really interesting thing happening right now where Shea's kind of on the up, and he's arrived. He has definitely arrived. Like I said, there's people debating who's actually a better player. Who would you rather have on your team, Shea or Luka? Shea plays a lot more defense. He's really efficient scorer. He's kind of an overall type of player. Luka fills up the stat sheet, but he kind of needs to run the offense through him more. People are making that debate, and yet Luka's still selling consistently for 3 to 4x or more above Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. That to me says I would probably be looking to buy more Shai cards, even now while his prices have been up, than I might be with Luka. So this is how I approach it. Look for the cards that are down the most. Those are pretty good, strong buying opportunities. And then I'm going to highlight 2 cards in particular. Not telling you to go buy these cards by any means. You make your own decisions. But both of these cards have come down significantly. You've got Jaren Jackson Jr., who, like I said, he won Defensive Player of the Year last year. He's a really solid player. In fact, if we go back, you can see right here, he's averaging 22 points a game, almost 6 rebounds, 1.5 blocks, 1.1 steals, just having a really solid, decent season overall, about a 500 effective field goal percentage. That's not the best in the world. That could be a little bit higher. But getting this, his PSA 10 Prism Silver for $23, I mean, that's actually a steal. Whoever bought that got an absolute deal. And you can see there's been this volatility. I would look to buy those types of cards on auction. Again, zoom in on the auctions, wait until they're ending, see which ones you can get for a deal, cast a wide net, there's a variety of different options, and see what you can score. So hopefully that answers some questions too. I know people have been wanting to look at lower price cards recently. I hope that helps and isolate or identify what my approach is typically with cards like that. All right, so what do you think? Are the wax prices from 2018 still too high to play the long game? Do you agree that that 2018 class has amazing long-term potential? Are you bullish on any basketball players before the playoffs? Let me know down in the comments. And while you're down there, do me a huge favor, like this video, make sure to subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share it with a friend. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, happy investing, keep on collecting, and make sure to have fun.